Here is one of two stories from the Emerald Isle of Ireland. My uncle and his buddies are exploring the mountains in Wicklow in the 90s. He has changed some details over the years, so take it with a grain of salt. There is just nothing at all to do in the Wicklow Mountains. There are fields and forests, and then more fields, and maybe a shed. Him and his friends just want a quiet place to drink and camp. He is with Tom and Declan. Tom is a skittish, skinny guy, and always has been. Declan is built like a bear. They find a place. They camp with a little barbecue out of their shitty hatchback car. Typical stuff. Tom heads off for a piss in the woods drunk. Uncle and Declan have a laugh for a while, drinking and doing dumb stuff. Half an hour later, Tom has not come back. What? Okay, what the hell? After wandering around the forest looking for him, my uncle manages to lose Declan and trips halfway down a damn hill in the wet mud. He lands hard on something soft. It's Tom, who is staring at my uncle as if he had just taken a shit on his grandmother. Tom, what the fuck are you do? Tom interrupts him with a super slow motion point towards the clearing. Uncle described it as a load of pricks in robes staring at a rock in the middle of the poxy forest. They are all standing silently still in blue robes around a tall rock in the middle of the mountains. They haven't noticed my uncle and Tom just yet. The two of them lie in the mud for nearly 20 minutes in fear. Suddenly, Declan bellows, "Lads, where the fuck are yous? It's freezing." The mob spins around and immediately starts walking towards them. They run like Sonic the shit-scared hedgehog back to their camp. They start trying to pack everything up. The mob is walking through the forest towards them. They leave all of their things. They get in the car. They are driving. They get home. They don't remember anything of the journey. He refuses to go camping now. There were rumors of a cult up there for decades, but that is the only proper sighting. Here's my own spooky stuff from Ireland. I head down to the country with 4 friends, to a house one dude's granddad's brother's friends owns or some shit. It's absolutely in the middle of nowhere. Just to get to it, you have to find this shitty road on this shitty farm between a bush and a wall and force your way down it like it was Amazonian jungle brush. Spend 3 or 4 days there drinking and doing dumb stuff that teenagers do with a free house. It's about day 5. We are a bit bored and hungover. We are wandering around the surrounding area of the house, fields and hills and forest as far as you can see. There is just nothing here. Bored, bored, bored. Suddenly, the generator powering the house dies. Like, dies, as in super absolutely broken forever. It's from the 50s, so I suppose it was bound to die one day. We take the opportunity to do a spooky outdoors thing. We are going home the next night anyway. We light a crappy, busted barbecue and eat all of the sausages from the fridge because they would go off otherwise. Duh. We go to bed after a good few drinks. It's about 3 a.m. I wake up for a piss. I stumble about in the dark, using my phone as a light. I piss a glorious piss. Suddenly, I hear a bark outside, like a big chunky wolfhound of a dog bark. Okay, weird. I figure a farmer has a collie and is chasing a lost sheep, as that stuff happens often. Hang on. It's 3 a.m. It's pissing rain outside. That bark would not come from a collie. There are no sheep farmers nearby anyway. What? I go downstairs to see if I can see something. Just darkness. Forget it. I just go back to bed. I wake up again later to a loud metal thud outside. My friend David also heard it. We come to the conclusion that the weather knocked over the barbecue. I shuffle downstairs to check anyway. The barbecue is indeed knocked over, but it's also torn to shreds. Thick pieces of metal, like a big chunky bastard fence or something, just pulled apart. What the fuck? Dave tries to go outside to check it. I can't let you do that, Dave. Dave is easily convinced not to go outside. We just go back upstairs. The metal clanking continues. It's just the barbecue rolling in the wind. Meh. I try to sleep. I absolutely will not get my eyes closed. The rain and the wind are becoming deafening now. I start talking to Dave. He is wide awake as well. trying to figure out what the hell mauled our barbecue. We joke about escaped exotic animals. Our friend James walks into the room without knocking, that dick, and says he has been awake since 2 a.m., hearing weird stuff all night. Okay, well, you only now decided to tell us? That's great, thanks. We hover about in the room, bored and a bit scared. Start hearing dull funk noises, like someone banging on plywood. What? We sheepishly walk downstairs. Dave and James go to the kitchen, and I, having shoes on, am volunteered to walk outside in my shitty raincoat. It is absolutely pissing rain. I walk to the barbecue, which is now against the wall. I have a really short wander around the house, and walk back in. Dave and James are absolutely freaking out in the kitchen. Did you not just see that? No, obviously. They describe this beige-haired dog bear that was casually walking through one of the bushes surrounding the house. I am absolutely convinced that they are screwing with me right now. Right, lads, if you are so sure it's there, let's go and find it. I am pissed off and cold and tired. I drag the two of them out into the night. My fourth friend is unconscious asleep, that dick shit. They insist on bringing kitchen knives. Okay, sure, go for it. Angrily, march them off into the woods and fields to find it. I have seriously never been so livid and determined in my life. It's like 4:30 a.m. and they start this shit. There is a disgusting smell of cow shit and meat as we walk outside. It's the country, so we don't think of it. The rain starts easing off. It's utterly blackness except for phone lights. This next thing that happened is the bane of my nightmares, and I still think about it constantly. We wander a shortish distance into the forested area. It is so dark, holy Christ. My eyes are very slowly adjusting. It is freezing cold, and I am wandering in the rain and the mud. What the hell is my life? What has it come to? Dave suddenly yelps and starts bolting back to the house. James follows. I am dumb. I just stand there. I turn slowly to the right. Standing over the body of what I think was once a dog is this 6-ish foot tall, beige-skinned, short-haired, blood and rain-drenched, literal dog man. It smells like what wet dog would smell like after 40 years of fermenting. I have no ability to move or do anything but stare. I am just frozen entirely. I don't know why I didn't run. Dave said he was screaming for me to get inside the house. I don't remember it. It rears up and makes a noise I have only been able to equate to the noise that Kurt Cobain makes at the start of the song Lounge Act, except it's opening its mouth and shaking violently as if it's trying to scream its lungs out. I still have no ability to move at all. It looks what I can only describe as confused about me. It takes a single movement forwards. Oh right, I have legs. Thanks, brain. I ran so fast I smashed my foot into a rock and broke my toe. I didn't even notice until I was indoors. We sit there in the dead silence, soaking wet. Our last friend Liam comes in and looks at us. What the hell were you guys doing? Right, basically after that shit, we all agreed that it was time to go home. Here is a little bit more green text. We start shoving stuff into our bags. It is so dark, we end up forgetting most of our stuff. Stand at the front door for ages without going outside to the car. We all bolt at the same time. We didn't even close the door. We drive off and arrive home at like 8 a.m., drenched and exhausted. Don't say a word to anyone for a year or so. Still absolutely no idea what any of that stuff was. I think it smelled the barbecued meat and came for it, but I don't know at all. This happened to me about 9 years ago now. I am 46 years old right now. Be me, 27 years old when this happened. I live in Belfast, but my GF is from Armagh. She invites me down for the weekend. Nothing ever happens here, lol, except for boredom and Catholic guilt. I decide to go anyway. She is working on Friday night, so I head out for a little walk. This place is incredibly rural. There are fields, woods, the smell of slurry and silent resentment. I see a wee dirt trail off the main road. There is no sign for it at all. There is no reason for it to be there. Obviously, I take it because I'm an idiot. The sun is starting to go down. This trail winds through all of the trees, and then opens up into a weird clearing. It's dead quiet in this clearing. There is no birdsong to be heard at all. In this clearing, in the middle, there is a circle of flat stones. They look ancient. In the center of the circle, there is a statue. It looks like a horse rearing up, except instead of a neck and a head, it has tentacles. Not like squid tentacles, more like massive coiled limbs covered in Celtic knotwork. What the hell? This thing is old, like really old. It's covered in moss, but the shape is still intact. Some kind of forgotten about god, maybe? It reminds me of the weird stuff I once read about Armagh being a spiritual center in ancient times, like pre-Christian, older than the Druids even. Armagh equals Urdhvaha, named after Maha, goddess of war, sovereignty, death, etc. The place used to be a big pagan hotspot. People would come here for miles to do rituals here. Then Christianity shows up, turns it into a holy city. But before that, proper occult things went down here. Human sacrifice, animal skins, hallucinogens, the works. I start taking pictures of the statue. I get a weird feeling, like it's watching me. No eyes, no face on the statue, just coiled limbs. But it still feels aware. I hear something behind me. I turn around. I see a group of people in long robes entering the clearing. Fuck. They do not look surprised to see me, just kind of disappointed. One of them gestures in my direction. I freeze. I don't know if it's fear or something stronger. They start chanting, not in Irish or Latin. It's in this language that makes my teeth itch, like something is wrong with the sounds that they are saying, like the meaning is under the sound, slivering. They circle the statue. They place offerings at its base. They place skulls, blood, what looks like a baby goat that is still twitching. The statue begins to change. The moss starts to peel off of it in big strips. The limbs start to shift. The statue isn't stone anymore. It's flesh, squirming and wet. That's when I realize they're not worshipping. They are feeding it. One of the robed figures turns to me and lifts their hood. It's my GF. Fuck this green tech shit. I cannot keep this up. She didn't look surprised. Not at all. She looked content, like she had been waiting for this, waiting for me to show up. Her eyes were much darker than I remembered. There was no light behind them. Just that cold serenity you see in statues of saints and serial killers. Don't be afraid, she said. Her voice echoed weirdly in the clearing. You're a part of this now. I tried to run, but my legs would not listen. They felt numb, heavy. The chanting rose behind me, thrumming like a second heartbeat. I turned to look at the statue. No, the thing. It was fully alive now. Half of it still resembled a twisted, powerful horse, but the upper body undulated with thick limbs that coiled and uncoiled like eels in oil. It had no face, just a yawning vertical mouth, ringed with ridges and teeth. It smelled like the sea, and rot. One of the robed figures brought a bowl to my lips. It was this thick and dark liquid. It tasted like iron and mushrooms. I gagged but swallowed, unable to resist. I don't even know why I drank it. My vision blurred. The world pulsed. I saw things then. Things buried beneath the hills of Armagh. Bones, circles of salt, deep wells that reached into blackness. I saw people dancing in firelight, skin painted with spiral symbols, eyes rolled back as they offered blood to gods with no name, and I saw myself among them. When I finally came to, the clearing was empty. No statue, no blood. Birdsong was back again, and the morning sun was peeking through the trees. I never saw my GF again. She wouldn't answer my calls. Her house was empty. The neighbors said that she had moved out years ago. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. I don't like telling this story, but screw it, it's only X. Be me, about 2 years ago. I had bad insomnia one night, around 3 in the morning. My bed is facing a large window in my room. I am just staring outside the window, looking at the stars, trying to fall asleep unsuccessfully. I was not drunk or high in any way, shape, or form. I notice a strange light in the distance. I watch it for a while. It is changing color and pulsing. Bright white to red to green to blue, in no particular order, sometimes 2 or 3 colors at once. I assume it's a plane or a helicopter. I just keep on watching. It's pulling impossible maneuvers for anything but maybe a stunt pilot or drone. I get so curious I get out of bed and quietly sneak outside in my boxers and vest to watch it. Then it stops me there, and does loops, and turns and goes backwards. It zips from one point to another, pretty much just impossible movements for anything but a drone. I convince myself it has to be a drone. It's the most logical explanation, but I can't shake the reasonable thought of who the hell is going to be flying a drone at almost 4 in the morning in the middle of buttfuck nowhere in rural Ireland. I keep watching. After a while, I get the feeling that this is not right, and I need to be sure I'm not hallucinating the object. I wake my cousin and drag him outside to look. He says, "Yeah, weird man," like he doesn't really care, but I make him say whether he can see it or not. He says yes, he can see what I am talking about, but he is too tired to care and goes back to bed. I end up watching for almost 20 minutes, forgetting I am slowly freezing to death in my undies in the 0 to 1 degrees cold. The light then moves directly opposite my house above a tree line on a hill and sits there, just twinkling and flashing. It slowly starts rising up higher in a straight line. It sits there for what feels like an hour, but was probably less than 5 minutes until suddenly a bright flash of green light just appears, about the size of 2 to 3 football fields. I am absolutely frozen solid after seeing this. I stare at the green trail in the sky, and it dissipates quickly. It looked exactly like the aurora borealis, but it was almost a perfect rectangle made of it that faded like smoke in the warm air. It had 2 darker lines going through vertically like a trail of an object that had passed through it. It was exactly, and I mean exactly, where the object had been seconds previously. I honestly did not see the object leave. It happened so quickly, I couldn't. 1 second the light was just hanging there in the sky, and then poof, there was a giant trail of northern lights in its place, and then it was gone. No noise, no nothing, just a calm stillness so quiet I could hear my nuts retreating into my abdomen in fear of the unknown. And then, I shit you not, every dog on each farm in the surrounding area just started barking almost all at once. I almost fell over when they startled me because I had been staring at the spot where it was open-mouthed, just terrified at what I'd witnessed. I slowly went inside, mouth still open, and just laid in bed staring at the ceiling with my heart racing. I fell asleep eventually, around 6 a.m. I've tried telling people that I trust, and a few family members, but only a small handful of people I'm close to actually believe me, or at least let me think that they believe me. On my mother's life, and all that I hold dear, that is exactly what happened as I saw it. I don't have many X stories saved onto my drive or in my memory, but I got a pretty long tail involving my grandma and a lot of weird stuff in Kentucky. Most of it comes when I was living with my grandma for a few years, roughly from 2002 to 2004 if memory serves. And while there were gaps between the weird occurrences, it sure did not feel like it. I should also mention that I was living with my grandma at the time because of the death of my parents. I was 15 years old when I moved in with her in 2002, and I was, at least at the time, a deadbeat high school dropout. I figure I will tell one of the shorter tales to see if anyone is interested, or if I should get the fuck out of here. My grandma was very, very Irish, and she was fiercely loyal to the folk traditions of the Emerald Isle. She had a very particular arrangement of decorations in every single room, a crucifix with Jesus upon the cross, 2 fairy wall ornaments, and either a teddy bear or some other stuffed animal. She would always tell me that this was to appease the fate of the land, while still showing reverence unto Jesus, but being an angsty teen, I thought it was all bullshit. The first night I had slept in my bedroom at the farmhouse, I tossed out a majority of the decorations, with exception to the crucifix. When I woke up in the morning, everything that I had in the room was misplaced, just slightly. It was a weird feeling, waking up in a room you had just went to sleep in, and noticing that every single decoration and piece of furniture was moved ajar by just a few inches. Just enough to notice, but enough to make you double take if it was always like that. I tried to ignore it, but it kept bugging me all day long, and in the evening, I went back up to my room and rearranged everything just how I remembered it. Nothing would really happen until much later, when I was just about to go to bed. I heard a loud, sharp tapping coming from the window, and it immediately jolted me awake, but I found myself paralyzed. I guess it must have been sleep paralysis, but most accounts I hear about sleep paralysis describe it coming after someone wakes up, while this was just as I was about to fall asleep. I was stuck in my bed as I saw the window slide open, and some sort of silhouette entered it. It was lanky but pot-bellied. I could not make out any of its features, as it stood at the very edge of the moonlight from the window. I felt this just distinct desire to vomit. I couldn't really sense anything else. I couldn't smell, taste, or even really hear. All I heard was that sound of the ocean that you hear when you put your ear up to a seashell. Just as the figure was about to approach my bed, I heard someone rushing to the door of my room. The doorknob rattled as I had locked it before I went to bed, and I heard my grandma shout something through the door. I think it was maybe something in native Irish, I'm not quite sure, but the creature hissed and slowly crawled out through the window once more, and the paralysis was broken. I immediately upchucked all over the bedsheets and scrambled to unlock the door for my grandma, who proceeded to give me a stern lecture about removing the decorations and how this is what happens when you do not appease the fae. This story comes much later. It was mid-December and freezing outside. We decided to have a little snow day, lighting up a raging fire and relaxing with some Christmas classics. Grandma ended up going to bed early, probably around 6 p.m. It gets really dark around here really early, and I was staying up late watching some movies while Grandma was asleep. I had the TV on low volume and the lights dimmed. It was during a scene I can't quite remember in the middle of Nightmare on Elm Street that I heard something quite loud from outside the window to the porch. There was a bench on the porch that was strung up on these metal chains, and I heard very clearly the chains just snapping in two and the bench falling to the ground. I jumped out of my skin at first, but turned on a lamp by the door to peer through the window and get a good look. The swing was broken, of course, but staring through the partially frosted window, I felt this intense dread wash over me. I sucked in air through my teeth and went to close the blinds, trying to tell myself that maybe watching horror movies was just making me jumpy. And then I realized what was filling me with this dread. Something was sitting at the very edge of the light, coming from the house. I could only make out a vague silhouette, but it was the same lanky, pot-bellied figure I had seen during my spell of sleep paralysis. I felt my heart jump into my throat as I slammed the blinds shut as fast as I could, turning off the lamp and sitting down on the couch, trying to tell myself that I, again, was just imagining things. This did not quite work, especially not when I heard something press up against the door. Not collide with it, mind you. It just sounded like something or someone was leaning against it. I got a distinct sense that under no circumstance should I look at whatever was pressing itself against the door. I should know that the front door had a pretty large peephole at about eye level. I tried to carefully get up off the couch, keeping my eyes pointed towards the floor to keep from seeing whatever was there. I heard this distinct, soft coo from the door, like how a mom coos to her baby, and I felt myself wanting to cry. Maybe it was memories of my mom before her death or something else, but I was torn in two mentally, between wanting to turn and embrace whatever was at the door, and getting away as fast as I could. I tried to get my bearings, thinking for a moment, and doing my best to swallow the fear in my throat, and I got a bright idea. I grabbed the crucifix from the wall in the room, closed my eyes, and pointed it towards the door. No matter how hard I shut my eyes, however, I saw it. I saw it writhe in agony and scramble back from the sight of Jesus on the cross. It looked so, just, evil, just from a glance. Twisted, with gnarled spikes protruding from its flesh, and I realized what I once thought was a potbelly was in fact its grinning face. What sat upon its shoulders was some amorphous lump of flesh that dribbled pus and phlegm. I burst into tears at the sight, and before long, my grandma was rushing down the stairs, finding me curled up in a ball in the corner of the living room, clutching the cross, the TV blasting static and drowning out my muffled sobbing. This is a small one, but I figured I should share it. My grandma used to own a few chickens when I was staying with her. They lived behind her house and would lay 4 to 6 eggs almost daily. I'm not a master of biology, but even at the time that seemed very off to me. I tried not to pay much mind to it. I found that after a while living at her house, questioning the supernatural just leads to things like the sleep paralysis story. My grandma never let me feed them up until I had gotten used to the supernatural happenings at the house, and I stopped asking questions. It was on an early morning, sometime around Easter, that she had sent me to go and feed the chickens, as well as collect the eggs from their coop. Something, however, caught my eye while I was collecting them, and dropping seeds on the ground for them to eat. Of all things, there was this small burrow behind the coop, about the size of a large cat. It would not be until later that night that curiosity got the better of me. I slipped out back with a flashlight and a glow stick just in case. I shined the light into the burrow and realized that it was far deeper than I thought. The flashlight not reaching the bottom at all, I cracked the glow stick and tossed it in, and immediately I started hearing rustling from the hole after the glow stick landed at the bottom. A small, dirty hand shot out from where the burrow seemed to curve and grabbed the glow stick, snatching it. There was more rustling for 2 to 3 seconds before a hissing sound and the glow stick came erupting back out from the hole, almost hitting me in the face. The next day, perhaps coincidentally, my wallet was missing, and I only found it later by the burrow when feeding the chickens. All of my coins were taken, and all that was left was a few dollars and my driver's license. I feel like I should get around to telling a pretty long one. My grandma, being as religious as she was, would regularly force me to go to church. She wasn't Catholic like a lot of Irish people. She was Pentecostal. Every Sunday, she would drag me off to the local Pentecostal church for a sermon. Again, I was a pretty edgy shithead teen for a time, so I was not buying a lot of it, practically dozing off in the sermons, until one particular day, I think in July, just a few days before my birthday, the pastor brought out this massive, dark grey snake. Pretty sure it was a black mamba, although I could be wrong. My attention was immediately grabbed, and even more so when he called my name out. I had never handled this snake before, and I thought it wasn't venomous. I love snakes as animals. I find them quite fascinating, and I jumped at the chance to actually handle one. I was a bit apprehensive, as anyone would be when holding a massive snake, but the pastor reassured me that things would be fine, and that the Lord would protect me. I carefully pet the snake, and it scurried back a bit, opening its jaw and showing off its fangs, and the pastor handed me a dead rat by the tail to feed to it. I held it over the small cage that the snake was coiled up in, and it leaped, but not for this rat. Its fangs sunk into my wrist, and I screamed in pain, flailing my wrist on instinct to get it to let go. The pastor began up a sermon as I was having a panic attack and trying to get the snake's fangs out from my wrist, and everything started to blur from the adrenaline. Eventually, the snake let go, and I stumbled for my grandma, begging her to take me to the hospital, but she brushed it off and told me I was fine. I was forced to sit in that sweltering hot church as it felt like my veins were bubbling from the bite. The snake seemed to stare me down as I was sprawled in the church pew. By the time I got home, I could barely walk, having to almost crawl up the stairs to get to my bedroom, and I collapsed on the edge of the bed, barely able to crawl into it. I should mention something for this part of the story. No one really lived near my grandma. She lived in this little corner of Appalachian wilderness, with a wide plain behind it. The only person who would regularly visit, however, was my grandma's second son, and my maternal uncle. I will just call him Uncle for now. I was bedridden for the next few days after my encounter with the snake. It felt like a migraine throughout my entire body, and any slight movement made me shiver and want to vomit. I felt like I was dying, and I was desperate to go to a hospital, but Granny refused to take me. All I could eat during this period was soup. I don't know what was in it, but I remember it tasting both bitter and acrid, yet savory at the same time. When my birthday came, I woke up in the early hours of the morning, either 3 a.m. or 4 a.m., I am not quite sure, but I was awoken by someone or something screaming bloody murder. After so many days of rest, I had at least the strength to sit up and peer out of the window in my bedroom. Out in the plains, on this large rock, I saw what looked like a glowing woman just sitting there, crying and screaming. Again, I had learned not to question the supernatural shit that went down at Grandma's house, and I tried to force myself to rationalize it as just a hallucination from the venom, but I know what I saw. A banshee. I laid back in bed, already exerted from such minimal movement, and I quickly found myself passing out once more. When I awoke at around 12 p.m., a gift box sat on my bed, and I felt in every way better, unnaturally so. I had not taken a single drop of medicine, yet I felt just fine. The box was a gift from my uncle. It was a dusty PS2 and a few old discs for various games. I got up out of bed to go and tell my grandma that I was feeling better. Downstairs, I found a party set up for me, or most of it. There wasn't a cake, but there were birthday streamers and the like. It's something I want to feel nostalgic for, but it's hard to with what came after. I was heading for the kitchen, where my grandma usually sat, when I noticed immediately through the window that she was in the area with the chickens, sobbing over something. I opened the back door to get a better look, and well, my uncle lay dead, having fallen from the roof, and cracked his skull open on a small but sharp rock. My grandma had already called 911, and it took ages for the ambulance to get out there. It still lingers with me, watching my uncle get rolled out on a stretcher through a living room filled with birthday decorations meant for me. It messed me up emotionally for a long while, and I think it did with my grandma too. She grew ever more distant after his death. I feel as if some cosmic force beyond me traded his soul for mine and claimed his life, when by all means, I was the one meant to die that day. This isn't exactly the end of the story, however, when it comes to my grandma's house and death, or the banshee woman I saw that night. My grandma got herself an old mutt of a dog not too long after my uncle died, probably as an emotional support, and it seemed to work. She named him Otis, and she was always much happier with him around. This time, the story comes from my grandma. I was actually visiting a friend that lived in town when all of this occurred. She woke up one night to hear Otis whimpering at the foot of her bed, and she thought that maybe he just needed to go outside to pee. She brought him downstairs and opened the front door, sitting on the porch while waiting for him to do his business. Immediately, she noticed while he was out there the faint sound of a woman sobbing, off in the distance, coming from the woods in front of her property. Grandma was not one to take shit from spirits, so she immediately grabbed Otis by his collar and dragged him through the door, bolting the lock and bringing him up to her room. How Otis died, though, is much more alarming. My grandma awoke that morning and went to step into her slippers before getting out of bed, and immediately felt a wet squish underneath her feet. Otis's mutilated corpse was left by her bedside. She was a wreck when I returned a few days later after this, bringing out a bottle of strong Jack that she kept at the back of the fridge, having already drank it down to a sliver by the time I found her.